We are good to go. So I want to take this opportunity to, first of all, welcome all our listeners into this wonderful webinar, whereby we are going to be discussing about the aspects of FMNR. Please note that this will be initially the very introductory part of it, whereby we're going to learn what FMNR is and maybe how to practice it, and maybe a few if there are any challenges that maybe one can encounter. But also, we're also going to learn a bit about some of the practical experiences that some of our partners also have had in the field. And with us today, we have three panelists that I'm going to introduce to us. But then before we do that, I think I want to also share a bit about FMNR. And I just want to say that FMNR is not just a technique, but it's also a movement. And I want to believe that by the end of this session, we are going to get, or most of us will have been convinced to join this session, this movement, to be able to bring about or transform our environment, because we know our Earth, Mother Earth, is really undergoing a lot of challenges. As a country, also, we have commitments that our national government has done. And we hope that by adopting FMNR and sharing it out with our other partners and other practitioners, we are going to be able to meet the targets that we have for, changing our climate and bringing up trees, growing trees. So we are going to have three panelists. Number one on my list is Dr. Carol Munini. She'll be going first. Dr. Carol Munini Munyao is a seasoned environmental health expert. She's in charge of aspects of climate change research and community development. Currently, she's the National FMNR or Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration Scaling Lead for World Vision Kenya, and she drives strategic initiatives, mobilizing partners and develops programs to scale for FMNR at the national level. She brings with her a strong academic background, and she's a dedicated educator and researcher at Moi University. She has also held key leadership positions shaping curriculum and guiding students in environmental science. Number two on the list, we will be having Mr. Simon Choge. And Mr. Simon Choge is a principal research scientist at Kenya Forestry Research Institute. He has a forestry background and specializes in natural resource management, economics, policy development, and experience in, he has an experience of over 35 years of active service. He's among the pioneers of the introduction of FMNR in Kenya and working closely with World Vision in the North region for the last 7 years. Last but not least is Melody Jeptor. Jeptor, she'll be coming as our third panelist, and she is a seasoned agricultural expert at PlantVillage, leading initiatives to promote sustainable farming in Kenya's arid and semi-arid regions. She works closely with local communities, particularly pastoralists and young warriors, to implement innovative practices such as FMNR and commercial vegetable gardening. That's just very briefly about our panelists. And at this point, I want to take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Carol Munini to start us off with the aspects of FMNR by introducing FMNR and speaking to the details therein. Karibu.
Thank you, Humphrey, my fellow panelists, and welcome participants to this exciting forum where we're going to introduce FMNR and also discuss how it's a pathway to climate resilience, especially in our developing nations where we have experienced severe degradation, land degradation due to issues of deforestation, climate change, drought, and unsustainable land uses. In our country, Kenya, specifically, over 80% of our nation lies in the arid and semi-arid areas, which have a population of more than 14 million. And in the Kenya's National Adaptation Plan, they have identified more than half of the counties in the country to be vulnerable to droughts. This is really alarming, considering the productivity and the health of these farmlands and grazing lands are mainly damaged and also have brought and made the communities become vulnerable. And therefore, in Kenya, the forest cover has been low, way below what is stated in the Kenya's constitution. And that is like 8.8, that was in 2021. But the government, through its National Landscape and Restoration Strategy, which is supposed to run for 10 years, it's aimed at having 15 billion tree growing initiative. This is a national collective effort. And as partners who are in issues of land restoration, we are in it to ensure environmental sustainability. However, tree planting is expensive. And as you've seen, the assaults are really expensive in this country, and the survival rate is quite low. And therefore, it's necessary to train populations in this country on other ways of regreening. And this is where the natural regeneration comes in. I want to introduce most of our participants to farmer-managed natural regeneration, mainly known as FMNR. It is a low-cost land restoration technique using regrowth of our trees and shrubs, roots, and also seeds that are dormant underground. And the objective is to empower farmers in order to be able to restore vegetation naturally without really expensive technologies. And this approach leverages mainly in the natural resilience of the ecosystems. It is believed that we have live underground beneath the surface, and these are the live root systems. And this is below what we see on the above vegetation. If the above vegetation is degraded and given the right condition, it can regenerate and produce full-grown vegetation. So FMNR has core processes, and the first one is to identify the tree stumps or the roots that are within our landscapes, and we choose which ones we would like for them to regenerate. This happens in all the ecological zones. Then you're supposed to manage the regrowth through either, pruning, and the pruning is also important. Can either be used as fences, can also be used as livestock feed. They can also be used as firewood, depending on what you would wish them for. You're also supposed to protect these regenerating trees, and it will be so clear to see the changes that are really happening after the regeneration. As you can see, if you could move the slides, you'll be able to see the changes in vegetations that have regenerated within a year. These are the same areas, but the regenerations and the changes are clear. Finally, you're supposed to have sustainable harvesting. And the sustainable harvesting not only entails the harvesting itself, but the utilization. You need to use utilization techniques that speak to conservation of the materials. And therefore, FMNR has 4 core principles. It harnesses the resilience of the local species and the ecosystems. It's also based at selective pruning. It's very necessary because it encourages healthy tree growth, and optimal tree density is important because it balances between agriculture, biodiversity, and other land uses practices, and also empowering the community to manage and also to enjoy the benefit. By restoring our landscapes, we're going to have benefits of our soil, which will have a reduced soil erosion. We'll also have enhancing of soil fertility. There will also be improved moisture retention, and also enhancement of biodiversity, which acts as inhabitants for most of our wild animals. FMNR is also famed for reversing land degradation through restoration of ecosystems, combating desertification, increasing soil fertility from the organic matter that comes down and decomposes, and also issues of carbon sequestration. It also plays a major role in climate change adaptation, where there is an enhancement of soil structure and fertility. There's also improvement of water availability and infiltration. The creation of microclimate is also important, especially in the regenerated ecosystems, and also biodiversity support, which ensures stable, ecosystems, and also improved biodiversity, improved the livelihoods of the communities. This is through the enhanced tree product and incomes. Farmer-managed natural regeneration also plays a major role in climate mitigation, where trees are able to sequester the atmospheric CO2. There's also prevention of deforestation because of the reducing of our pressures to our ecosystem. There's lowering of greenhouse gas emissions, and these are through the reduction of inorganic fertilizers and also sustainable biomass provision without really damaging our forests. And so overall, farmer-managed natural regeneration has benefits on not only adaptation, but also mitigation through natural restoration. It also plays a key role in sustainable development goals, such as food security, climate action, and poverty alleviation. World Vision has been in this space of land restoration for years, and we have projects that are running all over the country. As you can see from the second column on your right, all those are counties that we have FMNR projects that are funded from all walks of life, different countries. We also have projects that have come to an end, that have restored hundreds of thousands of acres in the many areas of this country. We've also done studies to show really how much or does FMNR really contribute to increased vegetation cover. Studies from Kenya, Rwanda, Niger, where FMNR started, with millions of barren land transformed. We've also had dry lands in parts of Ghana that have increased the tree densities, as you can see from the various studies. We've also seen biodiversity conservation, where in our own counties of Baringo and Elgeyo Marakwet, there was progressive increase in our tree species biodiversity and abundance over the period of 3 years. In Ethiopia, it's famed for restoration of native forest of Humbo and Sodo for a period of years. FMNR has also played a key role in issues of climate action by sequestering, CO2 from the regenerated vegetation, and also improvements in land and soil quality, as can be indicated in the various studies indicated. Now, more and this information is found in the World Vision Australia's FMNR Hub website, which is provided for. And there's also a coming soon self-paced e-course that I'm really encouraging our participants to register. It includes a standalone orientation module and also a more in-depth, learning module from 1 to 5. And this is really important. We also have FMNR manual, which is important not only for practitioners, but also for trainers. We've had studies that have been done, and therefore I need to welcome our partner, Kefri, to speak more to the results and the evidence of FMNR. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol. Now, Kefri is a state corporation mandated to undertake research in forestry and allied natural resources and disseminate the findings to stakeholders or users of these technologies that are developed. Now, Kefri has worked very closely with the World Vision and other partners in the last 5 years to quantify the observed vegetation changes in these FMNR plots owned by the communities. Now, in this presentation, we share results from 2 study sites that are 50 kilometers apart, both located in semi-arid climate with annual rainfall of about 700 millimeters per year. Now, the study sites are actually Cheptebo in Elgeyo-Marakwet County and Mogotio. This is also in next county called Baringo. Now, you'll see the photographs of data collection process in progress. Now, data collection frameworks uses what we call nested method, using square plots of size 10 by 10 meters. The nested method is such that all trees in the plot of the 10 by 10 are assessed for height, trunk diameter at 1.3 meters above the ground, sometimes called diameter at breast height, and also the crown diameters. Now, within the 10 by 10 meter plot, a random smaller plot of 5 by 5 meters is selected, and all saplings and seedlings are counted and also assessed for height and basal diameter. Basal diameter is the diameter at ground level of the tree or the sapling. Now, actually, saplings are young trees, almost graduating to trees. Now, herbs and shrubs are also counted and equally assessed for height and other parameters of growth. Another smaller plot of 1.1 meter is selected at random to assess the grass cover in these plots. Now, as expected, the numbers of trees, saplings, seedlings, herbs, and shrubs, and even grass was also found to be significantly higher in the enclosed plots under FMNR, of course, compared to the control plots that are not actually fenced, that are outside the site that we are studying. Now, this increased vegetation cover helps to restore ecosystems. They do so by reducing soil erosion. In the same way, it improves soil structure and fertility, and of course, enhances biodiversity. Now, greater plant diversity, of course, contributes to more stable ecosystems that easily recover from climatic extremes and shocks, such as drought and sometimes also flood that keeps occurring in most of these places. Now, there are results which are graphical for us to see these changes that we recorded in these plots. Now, there are graphs there that show grass and herbs, the changes after 4 years of study. Now you can see the blue lines are actually the FMNR plots, and those that are reddish are non-FMNR plots that are actually controlled. Now you can see very exciting results of grass and herbs, beginning the first year at around 10.5% cover, and at the end of the 4th year, we had about 91%. This is a very exciting result of exactly what we expect. In the same way, the shrubs also had a very good record of the plants that grow over the period of 4 years in these enclosed plots under FMNR. For example, we started at around 2,800 individuals, stems per hectare, and at the end of the 4th year, we had over 62,000 plants, and this is a huge increase of actually more than 2,000%. This is incredible result, very, very good and exciting. And this is exactly the kind of environment that we would all want to see around us. In the same way, the saplings, which are growths that are very close to trees, we also had very good increase. Starting the first year, we started at around 3,900 individuals per hectare. And at the end of the 4th year, we had slightly below 6,000 individuals per hectare. And this is a very, very good number to see. So, and of course, the reverse is true for the control plots, that we saw a decrease from the 1st to the 4th year, decrease subsequently occurring every other year. And by the end of the 4th year, we had almost nothing, very, very, very small numbers of saplings, and also the trees. Trees also, you can see, of course, trees are normally few in a plot. So we started from 420 the first year, and in the 4th year, we had slightly below 700. these are very good results to think about. Now, this table actually shows the smaller plots that we are using, the 10 by 10, and the figures I was showing was, of course, projected figures to per hectare basis. So these are the actual graphs I was showing, the FMNR plot of the 10 by 10 and the control plot in terms of trees, saplings, seedlings, herbs, shrubs, and the grass. So you can appreciate the little plot, and then we project those figures to the results I've just shared, and you can see exactly what we had. Now, growth of indigenous trees produce normally wood products for household use and also for trading. Trading is actually for income generation for the families or households that we are dealing with. Now, the firewood, these are firewood usually, and poles. These are traded, and also they are for household use within the family. Now, trees provide food and fruits, and also nuts, and also fodder for livestock, sometimes by chopping off some branches that have very good leaves that animals are able to feed. They improve food security, especially in times of drought and scarcity. Now, grass, herbs, and shrubs are also very useful as livestock feed, and also they are used for herbal medicine and for commercial trading for income, especially for grass. Grass is a traded commodity in many households, and this is one of the commodities that our farmers are actually trading in. Apart from feeding their own livestock, they also get some income from trading in grass coming from the plots that they're actually protecting. Now, all these offer economic opportunities that help communities to better withstand economic shocks and related climate change that is now common across many countries and around the world. Now, we also estimated the carbon stocks in these FMNR plots and also the control plots, of course, to make those comparisons. We developed allometric equations for each of these key species that we came through in these plots using what we call non-destructive methods. Now, of course, we do this by using growth parameters of height, sometimes, of course, trunk diameter, and also the crown diameter. And an example of an allometric equation, I think, for Acacia tortilis or Vachellia tortilis is shown on the screen. This is exactly what we did. And of course, we're using other examples of other people who've worked on the same. And so we developed for different species that we came across in these plots. Now, carbon stocks are calculated by converting the tree biomass, and the results show that carbon stocks is equivalent to 50% of the biomass of each of the species that we're dealing with. Now, as expected, positive growth of trees show positive gains in carbon, and the results revealed increasing carbon stocks every year. From the time we began to the time we did the last assessment, the carbon stocks have been increasing every year, and they'll keep increasing over the years to come until the trees reach maturity age, when hopefully the growth now kind of stops. Now, they'll keep increasing, of course, over time, as I've said, and this is very exciting for income for the farmers who will hopefully trade in carbon in future when the markets are open. Now, the reverse is true in the control plots where trees were degraded for lack of protection and lack of proper management. Now, FMNR therefore promises a good future for growth of livelihoods and economies related to carbon trade for participating households in these project areas that we're dealing with. Now, of course, there are examples of species that we calculated the carbon stocks. You can see the figures are given in kilograms per hectare. Now, we have about 5 species that we dealt with. Of course, other species we didn't have good samples to prepare. But in future, hopefully, maybe the next 5 years, we'll have good examples of trees that will have very good samples to pick and develop and quantify the kind of carbon that they'll have sequestered over time. Now, of course, control plots was the reverse. We had more carbon in the first year, and in subsequent years, we had a reduction actually because of the degradation that was so common. Now, I'll hand over to my other colleague, Madam Melodine, to continue the rest of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Choge. And now I'll have a story of our PlantVillage and how we ended up adopting this strategy, the FMNR as a technique. So back in 2022, April, we had one of our field officers in Marsabit County, a place called Kargi. His name is Rashid Buroya. So Kargi is a few kilometers away from Chalbi Desert. And with the climate change issues, Rashid was interested in mitigating the expansion of Chalbi Desert. And he wanted us to try and introduce some exotic tree species so that we can plant in a Kargi area so that we can help to mitigate that expansion of Chalbi Desert. And in the first year, that is 2022 April, we introduced 5 species of 5 exotic species that are adapted to dry land. And among them was, as the director indicated, commonly known as neem. We have the Senna siamea, Melia volkensii, Terminalia brownie, and Acacia tortilis. So we planted these trees and monitored their growth for 1 year. After around 6 months, we had a 40% survival rate on 3 species, and of course, a 0 survival rate for 2 species. After 1 year, we had, for the 3 species that we had 40% survival rates. After 1 year, that is 2023 April, we had the survival rates reducing to 10%. So which was not really an interesting or a good thing to see. And with his goal of mitigating the expansion of that, the conditions of the desert, then that means we were still going back to have the desert expanding to Kargi and a place, Ririma and Kor. So the reasons why we had these low survival rates, as you can see from the images, the first image is Kargi, and then we have Ririma and Kor. As you can see from the photos, that is the state of those areas. We have a harsh climate. You can see how the land is bare, and we have only a few acacia trees in that field. The field is too open. It's prone to soil erosion. We have strong winds, and then during the rains, we have floods. So the harsh climate in these areas couldn't allow the trees, the exotic trees that we introduced, to survive. So in 2023 June, we thought of why don't we, rather than introducing these new species, why don't we concentrate on nurturing the existing indigenous vegetation? And that's where now we adopted the FMNR strategy. So we trained 10 youths within the area. We understand that this is a pastoral community. The areas are vast, and the land is communally owned. So we trained youth, whom we call them Morans. They are the warriors. Our warriors normally work for a long distance looking after their livestock, and they interact with the community members in their day-to-day activities when they're looking after the animals. So we train them on this FMNR technique, and we ask them to also train the community. And because for these areas you can't work alone, we have to involve the community, considering that the area is vast and we can't cover, with the 10 youth, we couldn't cover like a bigger area. So training the community would allow us to expand more. Also we need the community because for FMNR, we need some restrictions for the land that we have set aside so that we can allow the regeneration of the vegetation. So after training the youth, we have 6 months and then 1 year, and this is the results that we got from Marsabit. So that is one of our officers training the community on how to practice FMNR. So from the results that we got from Marsabit, we decided to move to other ASAL counties, and we moved to 5 counties, that is Turkana, Isiolo, Samburu, Baringo, and Narok. And from there, we were able to employ more youth. And now we have 56 youth working with the communities in those 6 counties and training them on how to practice this FMNR technique. And we've really seen a great success of this. And among the benefits that we've seen from these counties, one of them is we've been able to provide fodder for livestock, that is for the pastoralists, because for acacia, you can use the pods, and then we have the other species where you can use the twigs and also the leaves, as Choge had mentioned. And then we also have the source of firewood. We've reduced the floods, winds, and in these areas we have strong winds, so these trees also act as the windbreakers, and also we've been able to reduce soil erosion. Also, one interesting thing, for some species like acacia, we have they have this gum, and we've seen most of the pastoralists are selling it, and we have some organizations that are buying it at a really good price, and this gives a good income to the pastoralists. So, and of course, the increased biodiversity in those areas. So this has been a success story for PlantVillage on the adoption of FMNR. Thank you, and back to you, Humphrey.
Wow, thank you so much for the panelists. I think so wonderful presentations, and we've seen the results that has been obtained. But I want to point out that World Vision is practicing FMNR not only in Kenya, but we have done it in several countries. And I want to give a colleague of mine from Uganda, Gloria Drateru, to just give us a highlight, maybe in 2 to 3 minutes, about what the experience of FMNR implementation in Uganda has been. As she comes on board, you'll note that FMNR is being practiced from ASAL areas through different ranges of ecological zones. And so this would give us a chance also to hear how Uganda has done it and where particularly it's being done, and what are the results that are coming from this FMNR implementation. If you're ready, please, you can take up the floor.
Yes, thank you, and good afternoon to you all. It's an afternoon getting to evening here in Uganda. Glad to be in this forum, and thanks to the Kenyan team for having me. I want to confidently say that Uganda is a country where FMNR started several years back, as early as around 2009. And so FMNR has really been thriving in Uganda for that long and across the country. And of course, I'm also glad to report that we have a vibrant FMNR network of more than 70 partners. And these are both international and indigenous organizations that work in one accord to promote FMNR. And we are still going strong, expanding on FMNR network in the country. And through this network, we expect to see several pathways of the growth and the spread of FMNR. And also, FMNR continues to steadily grow within the World Vision internal programming. And our portfolio has continued to expand as far and as wide as 28 projects to date, and we still expect this to grow. So FMNR has been implemented within 28 projects that are spread across the country, but this excludes the organic spread of FMNR in the country, but also FMNR being promoted by all the more than 70 partners that are promoting it fervently. And yes, one outstanding source of pride for me and for the team here is the fact that we see a lot of replication of FMNR practices, most especially in those active areas of active program implementation, but also areas where the programs closed. We still see massive replication, and we're working towards documenting all of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gloria. We really appreciate your time. And at this point, I want us to go. I see there's a lot of questions also on the chat box, and I want us to look at it, and maybe I will be posting the questions to the respective individuals. And one of the questions to Dr. Choge is, have you published these research results? That is a question from Gion Yu, whether you've published, as carefully you've published the results that you've presented here.
Yes, indeed, we've published. We had it last year, and so it's available online. I'm sure we'll give him the contacts if he requires, so that he can access online. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. In the report we'll be sharing, we will include the link so that you can get maybe to read more about it. The second question from Josephat Ekwam, and this would go to Dr. Carol. How can we monitor the progress of FMNR efforts in Asal County to ensure that they are having desired impact?
Thank you, Humphrey, and the participant who asked that question. In World Vision, we have a way of monitoring. I'll start with that, and then now I go to the other way. We have an app, and that is called the Solstice app. It's just a mobile, app that helps with the monitoring of the regeneration in the area that had been secluded for FMNR. You're able to, count the number of species, the trees that have regenerated. You're also able to know and see, the vegetation changes over the years by looking and, taking photos and uploading them into some platform. But also, I want to mention that as a way of ensuring that FMNR stays out there to everyone and the communities take it up even beyond project time, we're trying to embed FMNR into various curricula, starting where we've already done it successfully is at the universities. And the first university to do that globally was Moi University. So some programs that have environmental courses and agriculture courses, they have already embedded FMNR. And so the students are learning, and also staff have been trained on FMNR. The reason why I'm saying that is once they are taught at that level and in their communities, now they are able to practice FMNR because they know exactly what it entails. I also saw a question where it was asked about if FMNR is just about pruning. And I mentioned in the second stage, you need to manage and protect. And the protection entails fencing, but it's also a community, there has to be the community engagement and the community goodwill. Because as you practice on your own, you may not make it if your neighbor is not practicing. So the protection entails not only fencing, but it also entails, having that goodwill of not only your neighbors, but also the leaders. So another way of monitoring FMNR is through the leaders. We've embedded FMNR in the NGAO, that is the National Government Administrative Officers curriculum, that will be rolled out to all government officers who are based, in the rural areas all over in the country. And one of the action plan is to ensure that once they are trained, they also not only train, but monitor the communities that they are administratively under them. So by ensuring that communities have this approach taken up, it's also a way of monitoring, because for them, they have to be reporting all the way to the national level. So we have the app, but also we will have the administration to help with the monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carol. We'll go to the next question. And this is a question from Amos Chepkoni, and I think it's directed to Mr. Choge. How is the feasibility of carbon sequestration assessed? And if feasible, how does the community benefit from carbon credit incentives?
Yeah, thank you so much. Assessment, of course, is very simple. Usually, we use growth parameters of trees. You measure, normally, of course, when you're doing the biomass calculations, we measure the height of the tree, sometimes the crown diameter, and also the trunk diameter. And sometimes there are cases where you also measure the ground level diameter to get all measurements possible. Then there are normally equations that you subject. Normally, when you do the equations, you do what we call destructive sampling to get an equation for the tree. Destructive sampling here means you have got to get the full weight, in terms of kilos or even tons of, if it's above ground, you have to measure total weight of the trunk and the branches and the leaves and everything. So that there's a way, of course, you calculate once you know the weight, so that once you do the model, then you're able to project. If you have, say, a tree of a given diameter, the model will give you exactly the biomass. And this is exactly how it's done. There's a procedure for all this. And so there's now a model for each tree. These are called allometric models. And each species now have their own model. And right now there's capacity building to train communities and people on measurement of carbon stocks. Right now there's a lot of work going on. Recently, government, of course, released the regulations. And I'm sure from now going forward, there's going to be a lot of work on capacity building of communities to calculate the carbon stocks in their farms, and then modes of payment, modes of trading, and things like that then will follow as soon as regulations have been put in place and well coordinated and well supervised across the country. I'm sure these are things that will come in the next few months, because I think the regulations were released just recently, and they are yet actually to be activated. I'm sure this is going to go to go on in the next few months, hopefully from the new year, and we shall see new things coming up. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. A question here to Melody. Is there any uptake of the technology by our communities in Kargi and Kor beyond the project sites? Are there any presence of Presopis juliflora in these two villages and Chalbi as at now?
My answer is yes. For the community, that's why I mentioned that for us to achieve like a great success of this, we have to involve the community. And I've seen most of the questions addressing that in the ASAL regions, the land is owned by the community. So when we involve the community, and I mentioned only of the 10 youth, and the 10 youth are meant to train the community that is in along a sub-county, and we have plans to move to the other sub-counties in Marsabit, and of course to employ more youth and train them. So for the community, we know that we have the community leaders, those are the community elders. And once you have this, anything new or any new technique that you want to train the community, then you have to bring on board all the community leaders so that they can talk to the community. And normally they have restrictions or restrictive sites where they tell the community now this area is out of bounds of the animals, and we allow it to regenerate for some time, and then now we can allow the animals to come back. And they do listen. So when their leaders, the elders talk to them, they listen, and they will allow, they will not allow the animals to go to those restricted areas. About prosopis, yes, we have prosopis in those areas. For the small ones we do remove, but we have the overgrown trees, the prosopis, that are very important for in those areas, because you would find that at some places, the only trees surviving would be prosopis. And for us, we wouldn't remove that. So we just nurture also that to grow to a big tree, which would be beneficial to the community. And I know we've had many stories about prosopis where we can utilize the pods, and also we can also use to produce maybe biochar, or use to produce like the other animal feeds. So that would also be beneficial to the community. And I know we have organizations who are related.
Thank you so much. There's a question from Evelyn Okoth. How does your program integrate the grazing communities into the program? Since these are pastoralists and will definitely graze on the lands under the project. Dr. Caro, you can take on that?
Yeah, thank you, Okoth. Yeah, we've taken note of the challenges in the pastoral area. And so one of the things that we're doing is to implement grazing management plans. And those are such as a rotational grazing, and also, designated or having a designated grazing free zones. So when the farmers decide on the rotational grazing, it allows the regenerated trees to at least grow to a level so that when the animals come back, they are not yet, they cannot destroy the regenerated vegetation. That is one of it. Also, others have decided that once the regenerated areas, the pasture areas have enough grass, they just cut the grass, and feed the animals away from the FMNR areas. And this requires community-led efforts, especially for the pastoral communities. But if it is, individual land, where the farmer just owns their piece of land and it's not so huge, we always encourage them, to harvest their grass and feed the animals elsewhere. It also helps them to store those pastures for dry seasons when the fodder is quite scarce. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know my colleague Martha had asked about whether the research had been published, and I want to believe Dr. Tari answered that. I have a question also from John Mungai, who says, what are some of the key strategies for overcoming initial resistance from farmers who may be skeptical about the effectiveness of FMNR? And how can we ensure long-term adoption in communities? I think that would go to Dr. Caro as well.
Yeah, thank you, Muigai. So starting on FMNR, first, farmers need to be educated that FMNR is just a regreening practice. And there can never be anything so wrong with trees. That is number one. And then number two, as the vegetation or as the trees and the shrubs come up, it's always important to encourage other livelihood, activities. For example, beekeeping in those FMNR sites. Others could also have some areas where they are growing vegetables. Others could also, as we talked about, pasture. So they have their livestock. They could have goats, sheep, depending on the ecological zones. And so they will be having the quick wins of the other livelihood activities that come along as a result of the regenerated landscapes. So we always encourage farmers that as the trees come up, you could also have other livelihood activities that come along as a result of regenerated landscapes and vegetations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Experience Mrefu has a question regarding Tanzania, and maybe either Dr. Caro or Gloria, if you have any knowledge, you may help to answer this. Does World Vision have FMNR implementation in Tanzania? And I don't know if we may speak to that, but maybe if not, as you process that, I'll go to another question that is directly to Melody. It's an anonymous who says, my question to Melody, do PlantVillage have a plan to include jarred wood fruit plants such as lemon, oranges, among others, to assist the local pastoralists and income? Some are medicine. Secondly, how can one be a member? Specifically me, Frederick, I've lived in such arid places, Somalia. Thank you.
Frederick, we know one of the main challenge with the ASAL region is water. And that's why we are bringing in this technology. So yes, we do have fruit trees, but only in places where we have a good amount of water or where pastoralists are willing to do irrigation to those fruit trees, because you would realize that the survival rates are really very, very low. So we do train pastoralists. We have a tree nursery, and we do give out those tree seedlings to those pastoralists who are willing, and of course, in areas where we know it will do well. Yeah, and I'm not sure you're from which county or you're from Somalia, so that I could answer the other question.
Okay. I think as we come towards the end, there's one maybe towards the end. There's a question: if you compare areas with indigenous regenerated trees and areas where trees have been planted, which of the two sequester more carbon? At Dr. Choge.
Yeah, of course, carbon stocks is equivalent to the number of mature trees or trees that are actual trees, not shrubs. So areas with more trees, of course, you'll get more carbon in return. So that means you need for you to make, for example, in this some of the plots that we have for FMNR, some trees are so many, so you have to do some thinning to allow a good growth of the tree, so that you have a good biomass growing in those places. So we'll of course give also advice on the kind of densities that you need to have of the trees within the plot for you to make optimum carbon sequestered, I think, in the plot. So these are now regulations we're going to help to set up, and we share with farmers, and we also show them what to do, so that they maximize the areas they have. And of course, areas where natural regeneration will not be forthcoming, we plan therefore to see how we can increase the tree diversity. And that when I say tree diversity, these are local trees that are suitable for that area. What we'll be doing is probably to use what we call seed balls. We identify the trees probably close to the plot that are within the same area, and then we kind of spread them, broadcast them within the plot, and we expect that to happen and increase the number of trees that are generating. And then, of course, again, management aspects of silviculture, where we thin the trees that will have come, is going to apply. And then the appropriate densities that we'll recommend then will be ensured by management. So the bigger the trees, the more the carbon. And so we have optimum numbers of densities that these have to be achieved. And we shall advise accordingly when that time comes for the farmers who are willing to practice. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, our presenters. And time is not really on our side, but I want to really appreciate all that have taken their time to participate and the active participation and the questions. There are questions that we may not have answered, but we will follow up to make sure we answer them, then give response back to you so that we provide in-depth feedback. I think at this point, I also want to point out that we'll be having follow-up webinars, and there are some questions that are alluding to that. So we'll be giving more details because this was just an introductory session. We'll be coming up with more detailed information on FMNR. As you remember, my initial statement was our desire is to form a movement because FMNR is a movement. Yeah. And I want to believe that at this point, some of us are already buying into this concept. And we want to really ensure that we are transforming our countries and the degraded areas through this technology. World Vision has a plan to restore 4.5 million hectares in Kenya. And so these are clarion call to all of us. Let's join hands as we focus on bringing back regeneration of degraded lands in our country. I want to say thank you so much to all of us for taking your time. And please watch this space because we are going to come with more training and more awareness creation about more details on FMNR. And I think it is going to be very, very interesting. So please watch this space. Otherwise, thank you so much. I want to appreciate all the people behind the scenes. I know there are those who have helped us to ensure that this is a success. For Tata, I think, thank you so much. Thank you for Dr. Caro, Gloria, Mr. Choge. Thank you so much for the research. And I want to wish you a very blessed evening and looking forward to the next session whereby we'll be speaking more about the targets of the 4.5 million hectares that we intend to restore in our country. At this point, I want to say bye-bye. Till next time.
Thank
Have a
you.
good time.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Much.
Thank you.